As soon as Danny brought her into the house, I knew right away that this lady was going to cause me nothing but trouble. Not that she was a problem, but she was going to cause me a lot of trouble that wasn't her fault. That's the feeling I got when I looked up and saw her standing in the doorway. "Hello, Mr. Carter?" she asked nervously. I realized she was married, like most of my clients. "Nick Carter, ma'am." I nodded. "No, I'm not the punk singer, but sometimes I get mail for him. It's one of the risks of being a private investigator with a famous surname living in Los Angeles. Actually, my father named me after a secret agent in a spy novel published by Jove Publishing. We already had the surname, but my father called me Nick, not Nicholas. Nick? Oh well." I stood up and shook her hand. "How can I help you, ma'am?" "Your assistant said you could help me. One of your previous clients referred me." She smiled even wider, though she was still nervous. "I see. All right, Mrs. I'm Janine Linder. My husband is Dennis Linder. He's a psychologist. I have reason to believe he's cheating on me, and I need proof before I file for divorce." She handed me his photo. I raised an eyebrow as I looked at it. He was about 40, with a square jaw and dark hair streaked with gray at the temples. He had bright green eyes that probably seduced most women. "Okay, ma'am, you know how this works?" I asked, and she nodded. "Good. Give me 2 weeks and I'll find all the evidence you need. For those 2 weeks, I'll take £5,000. Do you agree?" "Yes, and half up front, right?" she asked. "Do you have a bank account that your husband doesn't know about and can't access to check your finances?" I asked. "Yes," she replied. "I opened it a couple of months ago so he wouldn't find out I hired someone to follow him. Your former client says you're the best." She smiled and handed me a bank check for $2,500. "Thank you, ma'am. Could you tell me about his suspicious behavior? The more information I have, the easier it will be to track his movements." "Well, it's a little strange that I even realized he was cheating on me. He spends all his nights with me and weekends too. But sometimes when I call him at the office to ask him out to lunch, his phone doesn't answer," she said. "Well, maybe he hit a client during a session," I shrugged. "You'd usually be right. But there's also the distance from home. He used to be all over me and now he barely touches me," she said. Then I noticed the smell of perfume on his clothes. At first I thought I was imagining it, but it wasn't my perfume. "Maybe one of his clients hugged him. How old is he?" I asked. "He's 44, she replied, and I nodded. "I've heard that men experience less attraction at that age than they do before 40. Could that be the reason for his emotional distance?" "You sound like you think I'm stupid," she said angrily. "No, ma'am. I'm just trying to understand why you think he's cheating on you. I agree that perfume is a pretty strong clue, but it could just be circumstantial evidence. I'll take this case, but I need to know everything you can tell me. How else is he acting suspiciously besides turning off his phone?" "Well, on Mondays and Wednesdays, he always calls before lunch. Sometimes he answers right away, but on those days he immediately switches to voicemail." "All right, I think I have everything. Tomorrow is Wednesday, so I'll start investigating. I'll contact you as soon as I have something concrete." I nodded, getting up from the chair and shaking her hand. "Thank you, Mr. Carter. To be honest, I hope it's nothing serious, but I need to put my mind at ease about this." She smiled warmly. She really was beautiful, and if I weren't married, I might have considered comforting her. "Anytime, Mrs. Linder. If I don't find anything within 2 weeks, you won't have to pay me the rest of my fee," I told her. "That's my guarantee." "Thank you again, Mr. Carter," she said. "Madam, call me Nick. Mr. Carter was my father." I smiled and she smiled back. "Okay, Nick, I'm Janine. Madame is too formal." "Okay, Janine. I'll get in touch with you as soon as I have anything. My assistant Danny should have your details, so I'll get your number from her." I walked her out and promised to call her again. As soon as Janine left, Danny came in and sank into the soft chair in front of my desk. Daniela Velasquez had been my assistant for 6 years. To be honest, I would be lost without her, and I think she knows it. She's not married. She dates men, but not often. She has luxurious black hair, hazel eyes, and a gorgeous tan inherited from her Mexican ancestors. She looks like Jennifer Lopez, but with a bigger bum and much larger breasts. Yes, if I weren't married to the woman of my dreams, Danny would be in trouble. I may be married, but I'm not dead, and I would never touch her. "Okay, boss. Here's what I have so far." She handed me the file she had compiled on our target from the internet. Danny is a good private investigator, and I'm proud to have trained her. She's a quick learner, that's for sure. Dennis Linder, an eminent psychologist. I glanced at the folder and alarm bells rang in my head. It seemed that a few years ago, one of his former patients had sued him for negligence, but the lawsuit had been mysteriously dismissed on some technicality. The case was getting more and more interesting. The former patient was a woman, and her husband divorced her shortly after the lawsuit was dismissed. That was a red flag. I had a bad feeling about Dr. David Linder, and my intuition was usually right. Danny, try digging deeper into this jerk, okay? I have a bad feeling about him, I said, and Danny giggled at my wording. Haha, yeah, I know. I opened the door for him, and thank you for not following him in. Anytime, boss. She winked sweetly at me, then returned to her desk to continue her search for Dr. Jerkhead on Bing. Daniela is worth twice as much as she is, and I know I don't pay her enough, even though I pay her very well. We're more like partners than boss and assistant. We split all our work 60-40, including fees. Those fees, when added up from several clients, amount to over $200,000 a year. After expenses, I usually get $150,000 and Donnie gets $110,000, and that's after taxes. We have a shared lawyer who provides us with legal assistance on a mutual benefit basis because we kind of work for him too. His name is Wesley Quentin, and he specializes in divorce and other family matters. I also have a wife, Samantha. Yes, Samantha Carter, nee Stern. She has no relation to Colonel Carter from Stargate SG-1. Her close friends call her Sammy. I met Sammy 7 years ago when I quit my job in Langley, Virginia, and moved back to Los Angeles. I was an insurance investigator at that company. Life was good, but after a client in Paris turned out to be a real jerk, I decided I'd had enough and decided to put my investigative skills to use closer to home. I had enough savings to open my own detective agency. Now I have nothing to hide. Sammy is amazing. She's 5'7", which makes her the same height as me when she wears 4-inch heels. I first met Sammy when I solved my first case for my first client. He threw a party to celebrate my finding and returning his property. I was the guest of honor, and Sammy was the daughter of one of his friends. She saw me, I saw her, and we were magnetically drawn to each other. We talked, danced, and talked some more. I met her father, a lovely man, and he believed my usual story about being a former insurance investigator who had decided to go into private investigation. I got several promising leads, and during the party I managed to find a few more clients. That was 7 years ago. And after 6 months of dating and 6 months of living together, we got married in a small ceremony attended only by her family and a few of our friends. My parents died in a car accident a few years ago while I was abroad, and they left me their paid-off house. I served 3 years in the Army as an investigator and was then hired by the aforementioned company to investigate possible insurance fraud. That's my story, and I'm not changing it. In any case, I became a damn good investigator and realized that I could make a lot of money as a private detective. So I said goodbye to the company and returned home to Los Angeles. Getting a concealed carry license wasn't easy, but it was worth it to carry my father's old Colt M19 11A1 pistol. The large 45 ACP rounds were practically guaranteed to kill if fired accurately. That's what I've always been good at. Shooting. I headed over to where Danny was piecing together the fragments of Dennis Linder's life and printing them out for me. Hi, Danny. When you're done, call it a day. I'm heading home. I smiled at her. No problem, boss. She smiled back at me with more than professional respect. You know, I hope Sammy knows what she's got in her house. I think she does, sweetheart. You know, one day you're going to make some guy really happy if you ever settle down. I winked at her, flirting a little. No, Daddy. I missed my chance a few months ago. She shrugged. I opened my mouth to ask her about it, but she had already turned back to her computer monitor. All right, sweetheart. Gather the information, put it in a folder, and I'll pick it up in the morning. Good night, I said, and headed for the door. Good night, boss, she called out as I left the office. I got in my car and drove home. On the way, I started thinking about Sammy and how she had been acting lately. For the past couple of months, she had been distant, as if something was bothering her, and she wanted to tell me about it. But it always seemed like something was holding her back. I decided that when I got home, I would ask her about it until she told me. I would have been an idiot not to notice the writing on the wall. I've seen enough of them over the years. The story was always the same. The wife or husband was always emotionally distant before or immediately after the affair began. To this day, she continues to respond with nothing when I ask her what's wrong or if she wants to talk to me about something. Why women say nothing is something I will never understand. I know a few who don't, but most of them seem to think that we men are paid enough to read their minds. Sorry, ladies, we're not psychic. Sometimes you need to spell things out for us. With these thoughts in mind, I turned onto our street and noticed a Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo parked in front of the house. As soon as I pulled into the driveway, my mobile phone rang. "Hi, babe," I said when I saw my wife's name on the display. "Hi, Nick. When will you be home? We need to talk," she said. Her voice sounded strange. "What do you mean, honey? Who are you talking about?" I suspected that "we" referred to whoever was driving the Jeep. "Just come home as soon as you can. Okay?" "Okay, babe, I love you," I said. "Okay, bye." The alarm bell in my head turned into a full-blown siren. I made sure my pocket voice recorder was in my pocket and ready to go, and that my mobile phone had a camera function. Just in case, I turned it on the camera. I had no idea what had gotten into Sammy. She had never confessed her love to me, not even recently. But now? I took a deep breath, doing breathing exercises to calm myself down. Once I had reached a state of zen, I got out of the car and took a photo of the Jeep's number plate. I had a very bad feeling about this. My gut was screaming at me, and I always listened to my intuition. As soon as I walked through the door, I saw them kissing. They didn't even notice I was so close, and I managed to take a photo of them together. I walked into the room, calm and happy, and clicked my mouse until they noticed me. I pressed the record button on the pocket voice recorder, which was, where else, in my pocket. "Oh my God," said Sammy. "You scared me, Nick." "Want to explain why you're kissing some idiot in my house, future ex-wife?" I asked, raising an eyebrow and closing my phone. "That's one of the reasons I wanted you to come home, Nick," she said. I looked at this asshole for the first time and felt a sudden urge to grab a gun and blow a hole in his head big enough for a Mack truck to drive through. Dennis Linder, my current target, was standing in my living room towering over me. It was not an easy situation. My client's husband was standing in my house, apparently entertaining my wife. At that moment, I wanted only one thing, to destroy him and her along with him. My heart was breaking, but my anger kept the pain at bay. However, if I wanted to get the money, I had to remain calm. Revenge would come later. The payback would be brutal, and those two would soon feel the full force of it. "Okay, what do you want to talk about?" I asked, sounding much calmer than I actually felt. "Mr. Carter, can I call you Nick?" the jerk asked. "No, Nick is for friends. You're not a friend. You're a goat who entertains my wife. Therefore, by definition, we will never be friends. Is that clear?" I asked with a smirk. "Yes." "I'm Dr. Dennis Linder. I'm treating your wife," he introduced himself. "Okay, and does the treatment include my wife kissing me in my house?" I asked, raising my eyebrow again. "Actually, right now. I know it's very unusual and probably difficult to accept, but you have to watch us while we do it," he said. God, this guy was dumber than a box of bowling balls. He was playing right into my hands, not only supporting my decision to divorce, but also guaranteeing that his wife would get everything except my claim for parental rights and negligence, which I was already planning to file. I just glanced at him. "Dr. Dennis Linder, right? I hear you're a very good specialist. Psychology, right?" I asked, sucking up to him. "Yes, psychology. My methods are sometimes controversial, but I always get results." He puffed out his lips. "And how long has my wife been seeing you for therapy?" I asked, holding back an explosion that was straining and tearing me apart inside. "2 months now," he confirmed. Sammy hadn't said anything about seeing a psychiatrist. I looked at her. "Sammy, if things are that bad, why didn't you just talk to me? I told you years ago when we were dating that if something was wrong, you could come to me. Don't you remember?" I asked, trying to get through to her. I guess so," she replied hesitantly. A confused expression flashed across her face. "Sammy, remember what we talked about?" Dr. Deepshit said. "Control. You need to assert your control. I know you don't like feeling helpless, so you need to take charge. Remember?" His voice was strange, almost hypnotic, as he spoke to her, and I saw her expression harden. "You're right, Dennis. I have to show him that I'm not just some stupid woman who can be bossed around." Then she looked at me. "Sammy, what are you talking about?" I almost shouted. "When did I ever make you do anything?" In the bedroom. We always do what you want, not what I want." She was almost yelling at me. Okay, Sammy, you know what we said after the wedding? If we wanted to try something new, we'd just discuss it and see what happened. Remember? I asked. All you had to do was ask, and we could have at least talked about it. Her face looked confused again. But before Dr. Fool could say anything, her expression hardened again. Nick, I have to do this. You can watch or not watch. But I'm going to do it, she said firmly. Sammy, don't do this, I told you. I really wanted to say, give me more proof. But I held back. I would have had a lot more proof. I have to, Nick, it won't affect us. I still love you, she said with a hint of a smile. I knew she was lying to me. I just need something else, just this once. I don't want you to do this, and if you do, there will be consequences, I said, shaking my head, hoping to look submissive, which she reluctantly accepted. Mr. Carter, please let me do my job. Do you have a chair in the bedroom? He asked. He wanted to entertain my wife on our marital bed. Note to self, burn the bed and buy a new one. Yes, there is. Wait, you really want me to be there? I asked, horror on my face. Yes, it's necessary, said Dr. Fool. If you insist, I growled. Doctor, is there really no other way to get my wife back to normal? I'm afraid not, he said with a forced sincerity that wouldn't have fooled a kindergarten kid. I hope you don't expect me to commit adultery, I asked. Mr. Carter, what your wife and I are about to do is hardly adultery. I'm simply helping her overcome a psychological barrier and improve your relationship. When we're done, you'll both be stronger. With that, he smiled smugly at me, and it took all my willpower not to shove the gun in his throat and empty the entire magazine into him. I won't agree to this, just so you know. I will never agree to adultery between you and my wife, and that's exactly what it is, no matter how you look at it. I said, noticing that there was no wedding ring on his finger and no trace of a tan. As I said, Mr. Carter, it's therapy. Controversial therapy, sure, but it's not cheating. This time his smile was condescending. Oh, after some pain, this is going to be a lot of fun. Well, not pain. My love for Sammy was dead, and I felt numb and righteous anger at what I was about to do to this bastard after he had entertained my soon-to-be ex-wife. I still won't agree. I shook my head and followed them into the bedroom. I discreetly took out my iPhone and started filming as he undressed Sammy and laid her on the bed. She willingly spread her legs as he undressed her, and neither of them looked in my direction as I sat in the chair and took lots of photos. Last chance, you two, I said. Don't do this. This is happening without my consent. The doctor looked at me, at my iPhone sticking out of my jacket pocket, but didn't realize it was recording video. He smirked. Like you have a choice, weakling. Then he continued. That was enough. I had recorded everything I needed. Janine's case was now rock solid, period. I got up from the chair and calmly walked over to him. I grabbed him by the hair. Then I hit him on the nerve plexus between his neck and shoulder, and he felt like a bad card in poker. Doctor, my ex-wife didn't tell you what I do for a living, did she? I saw the confusion on his face. Sammy looked at me as if I had grown a third eye. I'm a private investigator, doctor. I have proof that you tried to seduce my wife. Now I have all the evidence I need to get you divorced for adultery. I have video and audio recordings. I also have evidence of alienation and dishonest labor. I grinned triumphantly, then pulled a gun from my belt. You see, you're a big man, doctor. In a fair fight, I might lose to you. But Colonel Sam Colt makes all men equal in the eyes of God. In a minute, you'll be able to move. As soon as you can, get dressed, take your whore, and get out of here. I said it calmly and evenly, which scared them both to death. I heard Sammy sigh. Good. I looked at the woman who had just broken my heart. Samantha, you need to get dressed, pack your things, and get out of here. What? She asked. You heard me. I told you that if you went through with this, there would be consequences, and those consequences would be very bad. I felt detached. It seemed like my emotions weren't working the way they should. The consequences start right now. You're going to pack your things, put them in your car or his SUV, and leave. I'm calling my solicitor and asking him to prepare the divorce papers. And then I'm getting a restraining order against you and this doctor. I'm glad we don't have children, and I'm damn glad I'll never be the father of your children. I shook my head. Sammy, you've broken my heart. I hope it was worth it. My voice faltered on the last word. If this lover of yours doesn't want anything to do with you, go live with your parents. A whole range of emotions flashed across Sammy's face as she realized what I had just said to her. The main one was confusion. "But Nick, you don't love me anymore?" she asked, her eyes wide with innocent shock. "No, not after you willingly allowed another man, despite my protests, to sleep with you in our marital bed." I shouted the last word. "You have defiled the vows we made on our wedding day, Samantha. Because of my protests, you destroyed everything we had." Yes, this time, I really let her have her way. I wanted her to feel the pain. I wanted her to feel the pain in my heart when I realized she didn't love me anymore. "I can't believe I never knew you, Samantha." I called her by her full name because I knew she hated it, and because she knew I only called her that when I was angry. "Samantha, do you remember our conversation before the wedding? About fidelity? Do you remember? You said you wouldn't tolerate cheating. You said you wouldn't tolerate cheaters. Well, my dear, this fits that description. That day, I understood the wisdom of your words and accepted your philosophy." The bastard hissed, not letting her answer, and looked like he was seriously considering lunging at me. I backed away from him, keeping Sam's Colt at the ready. I also kept an eye on Samantha. "You're making a mistake, Mr. Carter. I'm going to sue you." He grinned. "No mistake. I found you in bed with my wife and thought she was being raped. Who's going to believe the police? A respected private investigator who caught the rapist? Or a man who claims it was consensual? Look at Samantha, doctor. Look at the pain on her face, the suffering. It's a good thing I showed up in time, isn't it? Otherwise, you would have gotten away with it. Maybe I should call the police and report you?" He turned pale, hesitating, but then changed his mind. "All right, it's okay, it's okay." He tried to smile, but couldn't. "No charges." I noticed that he still hadn't mentioned his wife. That was interesting. Perhaps he thought he was keeping a secret from me, and I was letting him live in that illusion for now. However, I had to push him. "I'm sure the news channels will be thrilled. Private detective's wife caught in bed with her consultant. This story will be on the 11th news." I shook my head with a look of disgust on my face, then he blushed. "No, you can't make this public." He was almost shouting. He quickly got dressed, making sure he had everything he brought with him. "Please, don't make this public," he begged. I held him back. "If you return all the fees my soon-to-be ex-wife paid you, I might consider it. But I'll still sue you for and negligence," I said, cornering him. "Agreed. Anything you want," he said, panic in his eyes. Anything I want? Oh, the possibilities. But no, I wanted him to feel fear. I wanted him to feel fear of the inevitable despair, the complete destruction that awaited his life. I enjoyed it and felt no guilt for deceiving him the way he had deceived me. The difference was that while he was entertaining my wife, I was going to entertain him. But in a slightly different way. I don't know how much he would have liked it. Dressed, he ran out of my bedroom and I heard the front door slam and he broke all speed records running away from me and my home. I looked at Samantha and realized she had seen the anger in my eyes. "Nick, we can work this out," she begged, crying crocodile tears. "Please, baby." "Where was baby when I came home, Samantha? Where was the love then?" I sneered. "Get dressed, pack your things, and leave," I said. "You have an hour. Since Dr. Dumbass doesn't want anything to do with you, I suggest you go back to your parents." Samantha just stared at me in complete shock. Then she started getting dressed and packing. I let her take all 4 of our suitcases, knowing I would buy new ones. I went to my home office and called a locksmith and a furniture store. I called the locksmith when he was already closing, but promised him a huge bonus for urgent work on the locks. Then I told the furniture store that I wanted a queen-size bed to replace our old double bed, sheets, a blanket, and everything else. It was expensive, but worth it. He asked why I wanted to throw the old bed out in the backyard, but I just replied that I wasn't paying him to ask questions. He got the tone of my voice and wisely kept his mouth shut. Samantha got ready in 55 minutes, and as a gesture of generosity, I helped her carry her suitcases to the car. In other words, I dumped them on the driveway by the trunk of her car. Then I went back into the house and slammed the door. I called Wes and asked him to file for a restraining order in night court. In the application, I listed Samantha's name and Dr. Dennis Linder's name. Then I asked him to prepare documents for divorce, termination of child custody, and unfair employment practices. An hour later, the locksmith and the furniture movers finished their work, and I paid them with my credit card. I called the credit company and blocked Samantha's cards. Then I called my bank manager and asked him to block Samantha's debit card. I didn't explain anything, but as the primary holder of our accounts, I felt it was necessary. I no longer trusted her. Those who think I went too far can go to hell. I poured myself a couple of glasses of Chivas. I usually drink beer and I like it best. However, I needed something stronger. So I poured myself a glass and started sipping it, thinking about what my marriage had become in such a short period of time. Around 7 p.m., I realized I was about to lose it. I called Danny. Hola, jefe, Danny said. Hi, Danny. I didn't want to call you after work, but I need your help tonight, I said. I was proud that 2 shots of Chivas hadn't affected my judgment or confused me. What's wrong, boss? She asked. I couldn't calm her down. Well, it's complicated, and I don't want to talk about it on the phone. Just come over to my place, I said, feeling the walls in my head start to crumble. Okay, boss, I'll be right there. She ended the call without letting me respond. God bless that girl. 10 minutes later, she was knocking on my door. I got up from my chair, staring at the blank TV screen, and went to open it. As soon as I opened the door, Danny rushed towards me and hugged me tightly. She slammed the door behind her, then stepped away from me to lock it. Turning around, she took me by the hand and pulled me back to the sofa. She sat me down and sat down next to me. So where's Sammy? She asked, already guessing what was going on. After all, Sammy's car wasn't in the driveway, and I wasn't as upset as I would have been if she had died. I looked into Donnie's deep brown eyes. She left, probably to her parents. She cheated on me, Danny. I couldn't hold back the tears as she hugged me and pulled me close, and I ruined her blouse with my tears. I clung to her desperately, just needing human contact. When I finally let all my emotions out, Danny gently pushed me away and looked me in the eyes. Nick, listen to me. Are you absolutely sure that Sammy cheated on you? Not trusting my voice, I took the voice recorder out of my pocket, placed it on the coffee table, and pressed play. Then I opened my phone, found the video, pressed play, and handed her the phone. Danny watched and listened with growing horror in her eyes as I took 2 bottles of beer out of the fridge. When I returned, a dark fire flashed in her eyes, and she stopped both the recording and the video. I opened both bottles of arrogant bastard Ayla's and handed one to her. Isa maldita peripolas, Danny finally exploded, taking a sip of the bitter ale. That damn bitch! Danny couldn't hold back. I smiled crookedly at her words. Danny is loyal to a fault, and she's loyal to me. She took another big gulp, then closed her eyes and took a few deep breaths. Nick, what are you up to? She asked, putting her hand on mine. Because whatever it is, I want to be part of it. A nuclear strike against the doctor. I have reason to believe that Samantha has been brainwashed. If that's the case, I want her to get the help she needs. I said, my voice hoarse from crying. If there was even the slightest chance that this bastard had somehow brainwashed her or forced her, I wanted to know how. As for Dr. Cranberry himself, I want him and everyone around him burned, except for his wife, the one you used to date at the office. It turned out she was right when she said he was cheating on her. And with my wife. That's nonsense, Nick. Danny shook her head sympathetically. But okay, what do we do next? Intelligence, of course. I smiled, trying to hide my feelings. Now that I was back on the job, it was easy to slip back into the role of a professional. I'll check his office in a few hours. If it's too difficult for you to get in, you don't have to come with me. Come on, I told you I'm in, boss. I'm in to win, and you know I won't back down. She smiled at me, then leaned in and hugged me tightly. I know Sammy, Nick. I've known her almost as long as I've known you. I think she was forced into that convertible. I think so too, but even if she did, I'm not sure I want her back. She lied to us. She's only known that jerk for 2 months, and in that time he's managed to convince her that our marriage is just another toilet to shit in. I said this, still holding her tightly. God, she felt so good. I really wanted to kiss her right there and then, but only 2 things stopped me. 1. I hoped that Samantha had been brainwashed or coerced and that we could somehow work through it all. 2. Even if she was more ready than she seemed, I wasn't going to stoop to her level and cheat on anyone, not even Danny. Danny, I know what you're thinking, and you have no idea how tempting it is right now. But we have a job to do. I forced those words out with tremendous willpower. I steeled my resolve and continued. Let's stop by the office and pick up the van. Great idea, boss, she said, holding back her feelings. It didn't take a genius to figure out that she'd always had a thing for me. We'd flirted with each other, but I thought she was just playing around. But now that Sammy was out of sight, at least for the moment, it was obvious that she wanted more. Part of me really wanted to give her what she wanted, and that part of me wanted it just as badly as she did. But, and here's the catch, I wasn't going to do what my wife had done. No, my revenge would be much worse if things went the way I feared. Besides, I didn't want to hurt Danny, and I knew that if Sammy had really been coerced or brainwashed by Dr. Dumbass, Danny would suffer greatly if I decided to deal with Sammy. We drove off in her car and picked up the van from the office. I took the Comcast magnets out of the boot and stuck them on the sides of the van. Urban camouflage. I like it. We pulled up to Dr. Dennis Linder's office around 11 p.m., and I entered the building by picking the lock. I was wearing soft, fingerprint-proof kid skin gloves that didn't restrict my movement or hinder my dexterity. The lock was easy to pick, and once inside, I made sure the earphones were working so I could communicate with Danny. I can hear you loud and clear, boss, she said. I had a small 50 GB USB stick with me. I was going to search his computer and filing cabinet. I wanted to investigate this guy's affairs properly. If he was doing this to my wife, what was he doing to other wives? I called the security company, introduced myself as Dr. Linder, and said I had forgotten the password. It's amazing what a good bluff can do. I sounded authoritative, a little pompous, and they believed me without even asking for the password. Amateurs, Danny giggled into the earpiece. I know, right? I chuckled quietly as I picked the lock on the doctor's office door. I walked over to his computer and woke it from sleep mode. There were no family photos on the desk. Wow, he definitely didn't love his wife. I shook my head, thinking about how this bastard who had a damn beautiful woman living at home was seeing at least one of his patients. Password protected. Shit, shit, shit. Okay, don't panic. I analyzed everything I knew about Dr. Linder. He was smart, but not very. He was cunning when it came to seducing women. On my way out, Danny told me another batch of dirt about Dr. Dipfeeker that she had dug up after I left. He was a serial womanizer. If you read between the lines of other patients who had sued him for negligence or even accused him of harassment, then those charges were dropped for no reason. Just a misunderstanding with the police. I already hated this guy. Now I was ready to slowly destroy him. Remembering his penchant for women, I entered Romeo as a possible password. Access denied. Casanova. Access denied. Lothario. Access granted. What a predictable idiot. Finding the files I needed was also easy. Wow, this son of a bitch was cocky. I inserted the flash drive and downloaded the entire Special Patients folder, which took up almost all 50 gigabytes of memory. I crossed out a few names, including Samantha Carter. Damn bastard. He had video files of Sammy here. Oh well, never mind. I took out the flash drive and put the computer to sleep. Then I looked through his file cabinet. I found Sammy's file, but there was nothing in it that indicated what they had done to her. So he wasn't stupid enough to write down his adventures on paper. Anything, Hef? Danny asked through her earpiece. Lots, darling, I replied. Nothing on paper, but I've got about 45 gigabytes of video he recorded with several of his patients. Damn. Well, we'll have to watch them when we get home, she said. I found it amusing how she said we and home when talking about our plans for the immediate future. As I left the office, I made sure all the doors were locked and there were no signs of my presence. No surveillance cameras. Just a phone call from an unknown number. Voice recognition could cause problems if someone got interested, but I wasn't going to worry about that right now. When we got back to my place, it was well past midnight. We went inside. I closed the garage door, and before I could say anything, I saw the stunned look on Danny's face. I'm staying with you tonight, Nick, she said firmly, leaving no room for argument. Okay, I shrugged. You can sleep in that guest room. No, Nick. I'm staying in your room, in your new bed, and I won't take no for an answer. You don't have to be alone tonight. And then it became clear that the invisible elephant had been revealed. Danny, I trust you. Hell, you're the only woman on earth I trust right now. I'm begging you, please don't make me break my wedding vows tonight, okay? I asked. I promise. She smiled and kissed me on the cheek. We'll watch the recording in the morning. I brought my laptop so we can split the video and do it twice as fast. Sounds good, darling, I said and headed for the shower. I felt dirty. And not just because I hadn't washed since leaving for work that morning. Standing under the jets of water, I felt my inner world open up and all the feelings of betrayal rush back. Suddenly, I heard the shower door open. She tucked me into bed, covered me with a sheet, then walked around the bed and climbed in on the other side. I was stunned and fell asleep as soon as I closed my eyes. I was completely exhausted, physically and emotionally. The next morning, I woke up with a smile on my face. Danny got up and hugged me tightly. My God, she was all over me. I decided to nip this in the bud. "Danny, listen to me, okay?" I croaked. When she reluctantly nodded, I continued. Danny, I am sorry for what I said. I thought yesterday was just a terrible nightmare. I'd be lying if I said I didn't sometimes think about you. But I love my wife. Or the woman she was before that bastard raised his hand to her. But I promise you one thing. If Samantha agreed to all this willingly, I'll divorce her. When that happens, if you still want me, I'm willing to give it a try with you. All right? That's one of the reasons I fell in love with you, she sighed regretfully. You're the most honest man I've ever met. There was both admiration and despair in her voice. Thank you, sweetheart. When I went out to get dressed, Danny wasn't in the room, but I could hear a pan sizzling in the kitchen. I smiled, put on my jeans and t-shirt, fastened my belt with the holster from my Colt, and went out to her. I didn't usually carry a gun at home, but I wasn't going to take any chances with a psychologist who might be a sociopath on the loose. I noticed that Danny had a gun too, a women's 9mm Smith & Wesson. She had also obtained a concealed carry permit shortly after I hired her. Smells good, I said, smiling sincerely for the first time in a long time. Thanks, Nick. She smiled sweetly and went back to making the omelet. I could smell bacon, cheese, and salsa. She really knew her stuff. She was wearing one of my old t-shirts and the jeans she had worn the night before. Her blouse was still on the floor in the bedroom. Danny, I know this is going to be hard for both of us, I said, sitting down on a bar stool at the kitchen counter. She looked at me and raised an eyebrow. Boss, I didn't agree to be your protege. You made it clear from day one that you might need me for certain things, and given my experience in criminal justice, you knew you could count on me. That hasn't changed, and it never will. I couldn't help falling in love with you, but that doesn't mean I'm going to drop this case. This case is personal to me too, because Sammy is my friend. That doctor is going to learn a hard lesson when we get our hands on him. Every word she said was true. She had worked as a detective with the Los Angeles Police Department for 2 years, but was fired for beating a suspect. She was lucky to avoid serious charges, but since the son of a bitch was guilty, she wasn't prosecuted. She was paid a small settlement to keep quiet about the circumstances of her dismissal, but she told me about it openly when I first interviewed her. That was one of the reasons I hired her. I needed someone who wasn't afraid to get their hands dirty. Danny was definitely not afraid to get her hands dirty. I just sometimes forgot that. You're right, I nodded. Danny, I need to tell you something about myself that even Sammy doesn't know. I took a deep breath. I knew I could trust Danny. She trusted me, and I had verified the truth of her story about who she was and why she had been fired. What do you mean? She asked, looking puzzled. Danny, I never worked for an insurance company. I worked for my own company as a secret agent. That was it. My name is Nick Carter, and I was a spy. And that sounds like a very bad start to the TV series Burn Notice. Danny just looked at me, then cut up the omelet and put it on the table along with the coffee mugs. God bless Danny. I kind of figured. It was either that or you had a criminal record. She shrugged. You're always looking over your shoulder like you're being followed. You don't show it often, but I've noticed it over the years we've been together. You know a lot about bugs and how to tap a phone in record time. You're also good at picking locks, which makes you one of the best lock pickers around. I laughed. She really was a damn good detective. You're good, I said, lifting my coffee cup and taking a sip. Good. Oh, and you make the best coffee on earth, just so you know, I said. This time she laughed. Thanks, boss, she said. I am not just pretty and have a nice figure, you know. She winked. I know. If that were all you had, I wouldn't have hired you. I shrugged. She leaned in and kissed me on the cheek. Thanks, Nick. Whatever happens, thank you for everything. She smiled. Hey, you're acting like you're leaving. That's not going to happen. I grinned at her. You're going to work with me until we're old. She paused. You know, you're right, she smiled. I couldn't leave even if I found a job that paid $1 million a day. Good, I said, because I can't afford that, and you're the best assistant I could ask for. I'm glad you finally figured that out, boss. Now eat before I spank you. She stuck her tongue out at me, and I responded in kind. Then I dug into my food with gusto, and her omelet turned out to be surprisingly delicious. God, this girl can cook. There are two schools of thought on how to win a man's heart and what girls are taught. The first is through the stomach, the second is through the organ of copulation. For me, it's both. Of course, Sammy is a tornado in bed. She was my tornado in bed, and she was a good cook. But, and you knew there was a but, Danny's culinary talents easily knocked Sammy out of the running. If she was half as entertaining as she was a cook, I would have seriously considered trading her, even if Sammy had been brainwashed by Dr. Madhouse. This may sound cold, but she gave up easily, without even discussing it with me. I couldn't believe she could go behind my back to a quack psychiatrist like Linder and not discuss it with me. It wasn't like her. At the beginning of our relationship, she told me everything. It was only in the last couple of months after she started therapy that she shut me out almost completely. When breakfast was over, I helped Danny wash the dishes. When she was done, she turned around and before I could react, wrapped her arms around my neck and pulled my face to hers. I'm sorry, Nick, she said quietly. No, Danny. I don't think either of us regrets it. I smiled. Damn, I wish I'd met you before I met my wife. Me neither, she replied sadly. Damn, someone was going to get hurt no matter how things turned out. I really didn't want it to be them if Sammy had been coerced or brainwashed. We needed to watch those videos. Let's go watch the videos. Maybe they'll shed some light on Sammy's mental state, I said. We went to the room where I had my home office and I downloaded half of the videos onto her laptop. I started where I needed to start, with Sammy. The first interview was fairly straightforward, just an introduction. Dr. Dicksacker wrote things down in a notebook as he asked Sammy questions about her life. He asked about her husband, me, and other relatives. She told him about her parents and how much she loved all of us. I studied his face, a sly smile played on his lips. Then he asked a few more harmless questions and told her not to tell anyone about this, as it could negatively affect their future therapy sessions. What a son of a bitch, he was going to seduce her from the start. And since she followed his instructions and didn't tell me anything, there was nothing I could do to stop it. He abused her trust in him as a healthcare professional. Malpractice lawsuit. Check. The second clip raised more questions. This time, they were more personal. He asked her about our life. He just wrote down every answer she gave in his damn notebook. He asked a few more personal questions that she didn't seem to want to answer, but he assured her that no one would ever know what she said. She answered honestly again. At the end, he repeated that the session had to be confidential. She agreed. I checked the dates on the videotapes. There were 16 recordings of Sammy's sessions, which matched his Mondays and Wednesdays. I groaned and covered my face with my hands. The third video was difficult to watch. But again, he wasn't brainwashing her or forcing her to do anything other than professional ethics, as he called it. In the fourth video, he began his insidious seduction in full force. He asked her to describe her fantasies in detail. Before the time was up, she managed to tell him about 2 of them. Again, the non-disclosure agreement, and she left. The 5th and 6th videos were very similar to the 4th. She told him about her fantasies. He reminded her that each video had to be confidential, and she agreed. The rest of the videos were also conversations about her fantasies, somehow related to her infidelities. By the end of the 14th video, he had raised her self-esteem to the level of narcissism and convinced her to have 2 men, including me, as part of her therapy. I noticed that starting with this video, he didn't encourage her to keep quiet knowing that she wouldn't tell anyone, including me. This was the 15th video in which he entertained her for the first time. A little less than a week and a half ago, he told her that he would be the second man if she wanted him to be. It seems like she struggled with this decision for a full 15 minutes while he gently pushed her towards what he wanted her to think. Finally, she gave in. The 16th video was the last one. It was almost the same. But this time, she asked her to keep it a secret and said she would call him herself on the appointed day and time. I paused the video and looked up to see Danny staring at me with tears in her eyes and an expression of disgust on her face that probably mirrored my own. This guy was a serial seducer, a real womanizer. At least that much was clear from his computer password. I'm going to hit that son of a bitch with a rocket so powerful that he'll regret ever being born, I swore in a calm voice before God and Danny. I agree with you, boss, she said, sitting down on the edge of my desk. Longer videos seem to be harder to find. If it makes you feel any better, all the others are shorter than Sammy's video. I guess she lasted longer than everyone else. She shrugged and smiled encouragingly. I figured as much, since all the others here are shorter than her, but you just confirmed it. That guy makes Machiavelli look like a nice guy. I shook my head. But as far as coercion or brainwashing goes, he's not guilty of that. He just convinces them to do it, and no one gets hurt. Yes, I've noticed that too. As far as I can tell, he never involves the husbands in his little games. But then the husbands somehow find out and divorce their wives. All the cases I've checked ended in divorce. She listed the names of the women and their ex-husbands. Okay, contact a couple of the ex-husbands and find out how they found out that Dr. Durak was seducing their wives. I need to talk to Janina. I walked her out of the room, then took out my mobile phone and called Janina. Hello? Janina, it's Nick, I said in a strained voice. Oh, Nick, thanks for calling. Are you starting the investigation today? She asked. Actually, I'm already done. You were more right than you thought. Could you come by my place today or tomorrow? We need to discuss some things, both personal and professional. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to bother you, but this is very important to me, I explained. Would you like to talk about it in more detail, Nick? She asked. Not over the phone, ma'am. Better in the evening or tomorrow morning. My assistant Danny will be with us. She also has some information for you, I told her. Where do you live? I gave her my address and she said she would be there in 10 minutes. 11 minutes later, I heard a car pull up to the driveway. I looked out and saw that she had arrived in a beautiful Jaguar XJ6. I opened the door for her. Danny brought the coffee, and I went to get mine and Danny's laptop. I put both laptops on the coffee table, and Danny and I sat on either side of Janine. And I began to explain. Janine, Dennis is a serial con artist who uses his professional authority and trust to seduce women and cheat on their husbands behind their backs, I said. From what we've seen so far, he only preys on married women. There are no single women in these videos, Danny added. Every episode of the video is about seduction. He gains their trust and then talks about their fantasies or problems in their marriage. Using this information, he seduces them and makes them do exactly what he wants. He doesn't coerce his victims or brainwash them, but as you can see, he's a serial offender, I said, showing her the entire series of videos. She gasped at the number of them. How the hell did he keep this a secret? She shouted, her face red with rage. Janine, please calm down. This isn't the end, I said, swallowing the lump in my throat. Not the end? She looked at me as if I had just fallen from another planet. Yes, ma'am. As I said on the phone, this case is very close to my heart. You see, my wife was his last victim. I showed her Samantha Carter's name on the video I had highlighted. My God, I'm so sorry, Nick. Janine hugged me tightly. He'll pay for this, you can be sure of that. He'll pay for this, damn it. I'll kick his ass for this shit. Janine, how much is your husband worth? I'm going to sue him for alienation and negligence, I said. Don't worry. I'll get you the best divorce lawyer in California. Wes will take care of you and get you everything he can. Jenny laughed. Oh, honey. Dennis is worth over $250 million, including his real estate holdings around the world. He has a lucrative practice. His books are bestsellers, and he's been on Dr. Phil several times, but he made most of his money from his books. Okay. I suggest we strike him hard. We'll hit him hard and fast, but it will probably take a few days to prepare. Do you trust us? I asked, pointing to myself and Danny. Yes, she replied. You've lost a lot too, Nick. I'm so sorry. I should have realized what a snake he was sooner. I understand. Come to my office in the morning and I'll introduce you to Wes. He's my lawyer and will handle my divorce from Samantha, as well as the lawsuits against your husband. But by Friday, we hope to bring in other ex-husbands to sue him for fraud and alienation of family. I laid out my plan for her, and by the time I finished, she was nodding and smiling. I agree. The problem is acting normal around him for 2 more days. I could say I'm having trouble with women, or just leave town and go to my mother's. She's old, so he'll probably believe me. Janine nodded. Right. He's trained to notice changes in mood or behavior. My advice is to call your mother, tell her what's going on, and ask her to cover for you. In the meantime, I have a guest room with a double bed and space for 2 more cars in the garage. I smiled. So far, only my car and Danny's car were parked there. I handed her the garage remote, and she took it gratefully. She went home to pack her things. Danny went home to pack her things too. She packed a week's worth of clothes and came back half an hour later. I giggled as I watched her drag her things into my room and put them in Sammy's old chest of drawers. She was a determined girl, I had to give her that. The next morning, Janine returned just as I was getting out of bed after another wonderful night with Danny. Danny was in the shower when I heard the garage door open. Janine looked gorgeous, and she hugged me sympathetically when I went out to meet her as soon as she entered the house. She had a small suitcase and a couple of changes of clothes with her. She also brought me Danny's bank statements, and I gasped when I saw how much liquid assets he had. When Danny had made breakfast for all of us and we had eaten well again, Janine said she was ready to move. I replied that we could move as soon as all the ex-husbands and wives had been informed of the latest developments. We had to call 11 ex-husbands and then ask them to call their ex-wives and tell them what was going on. We were going to file separate lawsuits against Dr. Dumptruck for negligence and alienation from the family, and they were more than happy to join us. Unsurprisingly, most of the husbands were ready to get revenge on the asshole, and most of the ex-wives were ready to do the same. But I wasn't going to get Sammy involved in this, not after I saw the latest video. I showed up at Wes's office with 9 of the 11 ex-husbands we had been able to contact, and all 9 ex-wives. Since I was ex-husband number 12, I had to be involved. To save time, Wes drew up a single document listing the actions and negligence and simply filled in different names, depending on who was next in line. I was like a kid in a candy store. Over 175 million in liquid assets belonging to Dr. Incompetence and nearly 100 million in real estate around the world, which would most likely have to be liquidated to pay for incompetence, divorce, and A to A. Of course, a class action lawsuit would have been easier, but in this case, we were going for shock value. I wanted Dr. Dennis Threat Linder to know that his world was about to come crashing down like the walls of cursed Jericho. Janine, Danny, and I waited at the end of the line while Wes took pleasure in helping a new crowd of clients make this asshole's life miserable and get rich in the process. Yes, he's a good friend of mine, but he's still a lawyer. When he finally finished printing out the professional negligence and misconduct documents for his new clients and sent them off, promising to deliver them to Dr. Dingus at work early Monday morning in front of a bunch of witnesses, it was Janine and my turn. I was filing for divorce from Samantha, and Janine was filing for divorce from her soon-to-be very poor ex-husband. Wes took an immediate liking to Janine, and it seemed to be mutual. We agreed with Wes that each client's belongings would be delivered by different bailiffs at the same time. Wes, Janine, and Danny joined me and grinned like skeletons. On Monday morning, the courtroom would be packed, and Danny, Janine, Wes, and I would be sitting in the front row. As a bonus, Wes gave each of us, his clients, a free restraining order against Dr. Dumbass. He knew how rich he would be once the fallout from this massive nuclear strike settled. Then it was time for Phase 2. The second phase was to saturate the media and law enforcement. I used videos of Sammy removing her face and replacing her voice with a computer-generated one, removing all mentions of her or my name using a new editing program I had purchased. I pieced together clips from various videos showing how Dr. Dennis Linder had a habit of seducing women, leaving happy marriages or marriages that could have been happy after his therapy, but he felt compelled to destroy those marriages for the sake of his twisted ego. I used clips from videos of other women showing how they all manipulated their husbands at Linder's insistence. I knew the media would jump on this story. The FBI will be charged with criminal negligence because he deceived men and did this to their wives. The California Board of Psychology would also take an interest in this case. To this end, I created a fake email address and used proxy servers so that I couldn't be traced. The second phase began on Monday morning right after the bailiffs finished their work. As the last bailiff was leaving, I handed Jenna a bucket of popcorn, and she was munching on it when Danny Boy ran out of the office looking around. He saw me standing next to his soon-to-be ex-wife and Danny. I grabbed my mobile phone, pressed the mass text button, and began Phase 2. We got into my car and drove away with Dr. Dick screaming incoherently that he would kill us all. The last thing I saw that day was him kneeling in the parking lot with a pile of papers in his hands, crying loudly. My revenge wasn't even half complete. In the third phase, we met with Samantha, and she agreed. She was living with her in-laws and was on the verge of finding out that she had nowhere else to go if she didn't get lucky. We met in a very crowded place at Starbucks. I love that place. I'm here. Does that mean you want to talk? She asked hopefully, sitting down across from me. Actually, I want to tell you something. I smiled. Samantha, I can forgive you for everything if that bastard forced you or brainwashed you. I'm not joking. But after 16 hours of agreeing with everything he said, even your protests, you finally offered to make me a cuckold to satisfy your fantasies of domination. I can neither forgive nor forget that. I shook my head slowly. Sammy, I would have done almost anything for you. I loved you more than you can imagine. Loved, in the past tense. I would have given my life for you until I saw this betrayal. This is the ultimate betrayal of everything we meant to each other. I'm sorry, Samantha, but you've already been served. I handed her the divorce papers. I think you'll find this fair. She looked at the papers in shock. You're joking. I wasn't myself, baby. Please, you have to believe me. She panicked. And then I delivered the second blow. I'd be thinking about what to tell your parents, Samantha. Something tells me they just got an anonymous letter that's going to show them what kind of daughter they raised. I stood up and walked out, leaving her in stunned silence. Wes asked Janine out on a date, and she said yes. I vouched for his honesty, as much as she was honest. When she asked about it, I said, he's a divorce lawyer. I shrugged. Then I'll just keep an eye on him, she smiled. But seriously, he's a good guy. I wouldn't work with him if he wasn't. I said that to reassure my friend. The next day, Wes called me and said that Sammy and her lawyer were there and wanted to talk. I agreed and went, taking Danny with me for moral support. Okay, I'm here, I said, sitting down across from Sammy and her lawyer, who looked a little like Gloria Allred, while Danny sat next to me and Wes. Mr. Carter, I'm Jean Albrook. I will be representing your wife in this case. From what she has told me, you have completely ruined her life, so I am taking her case pro bono. Let me start by saying that these terms are unacceptable to us, she concluded her first tirade. Miss Albrook, let me point out that I have enough evidence to sway any judge and jury in the world. It indicates that my soon-to-be ex-wife conspired with her lover to defraud me. It was even her idea. For your information, I do not condone that lifestyle and never will. Under the circumstances, I believe my offer is more than adequate, I concluded, leaning back in my chair. And where is this evidence? Asked Allred Jr. Wes, bless him, opened the DVD containing the recordings of the last two sessions between Samantha and the good doctor. He also played the recording from my pocket voice recorder and the video from my iPhone. The video showed how they had planned everything. She was supposed to play the role of a confused and helpless victim who just wanted to open up, and Dr. Linder was persuading her. Then, my voice recorder appeared on the screen when I walked in and caught them together. Then the iPhone video of them having fun on our marital bed. Then I snatched the video from her hands and threw it on the floor. I have the rest if you want it, Wes said with a malicious grin. Just say the word and I'll make copies for you. Gloria Jr. looked like she would have been happy to be anywhere but there at that moment. She looked at the offer I had Wes draft. Considering everything she had done to me, it was pretty fair. She was getting $75,000 in the car. She would get her things, which she could pick up at my convenience, and I would pay for an apartment for her for a year. No children, no child support, and no alimony. That was my decision. I wasn't going to pay her until she got married. But at least the apartment was nice. After consulting with Samantha, Gloria's younger copy looked at me. We agree, Mr. Carter. Good decision, I smiled. We all signed the papers, Jean notarized them, and in 30 days the case would be transferred to the court. Those 30 days dragged on so damn slowly that I wanted to tear my hair out. Every day, Danny and I kissed like teenagers, but I still couldn't go all the way with her. I wanted it more than you can imagine, but I was stubborn, or, as some would say, stupid. In the end, I was leaning towards stupidity. Finally, the day of the trial arrived. After the Leander case, we didn't have any other cases, so it was incredibly pleasant to wait for the countdown to begin so that we could officially be together. When the judge banged the gavel, I hugged Danny and kissed her so hard that our toes tingled. As we parted, Sammy came up to us. I'm so sorry, Nick. If it means anything, I ruined the best thing I ever had. There were tears in her eyes as she looked at Danny. Danny, please take care of him and don't be as foolish as I was. Sammy, I've been in love with Nick since the first time I saw him. I kept my distance because he loved you with all his heart. I kept my distance because you were my friend too. You were both my friends, but when you treated him that way, I couldn't stand by anymore. I don't regret it either. I love this man and I promise to take care of him for the rest of our lives. Danny surprised me with that too. But what really surprised her was Sammy, who hugged her friend tightly. Danny moved in with me for the 30-day waiting period. We had plenty to keep us busy while we waited for my stupidity to settle or the divorce to go through. When we returned home from court, I took off my old wedding ring, threw it on the coffee table, then picked up Danny and carried her to our bedroom. It took 2.5 years for the fallout from my nuclear strike on Dr. Dennis Linder to completely disappear, and many people felt its effects in one way or another. Several couples who had been separated by the actions of that jerk eventually reconciled and remarried, receiving compensation from wrongful death suits. Good for them. Good for them. I heard about Samantha shortly after all the malpractice and wrongful injury lawsuits against Dr. Dipthard were settled in court. Samantha now lives in Vegas and has become a dominatrix. It seems to suit her, considering all the dirt Leander uncovered in her psyche. Her parents still won't speak to her thanks to the surgical blow I dealt them by sending them a video of her and her lover plotting against me. Oh well, she had it coming. After Janine divorced him and got way more than half, all the criminal charges came crashing down on old Danny like a ton of bricks. He pleaded guilty but lost his license and was forced to declare bankruptcy after all the legal proceedings were over. However, that didn't stop everyone he hurt from getting what they deserved. It only delayed them a little. Someone, whose name I will not mention, paid a visit to the good doctor the evening before his criminal trial began. Whoever it was, he beat Dr. Asshole so badly that he spent several weeks in the hospital. Both his knees were broken, both his arms were broken, and both his testicles were torn off. And how do I know all this? Don't ask me questions and I won't lie to you. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go clean my old aluminum baseball bat. Wes and Janine had been dating for 6 months and had become so close that they got married, with me as the best man and Danny as the maid of honor. Wes made enough money from all the court cases to retire, and they planned to spend their golden years together. The trial was practically a foregone conclusion because Dr. Durac's lawyer couldn't present the video evidence of a Scully seducing all those women. He was found guilty on all counts, and when Danny went to prison, he only lasted 2 days before the guards found him staggering around his cell. Apparently, he fell so hard and so fast that he hanged himself, unwilling to accept what his life had become. That's good. One less burden on society. The bastard who ruined so many lives is now literally on the brink of death. It seems fair to me. After his death, since he hadn't changed his will, Janine happily used the large sum of money she inherited to pay off those whose lives had been ruined by her now-deceased ex-husband. As for Danny and me, we got rich off my lawsuits. A total of $15 million. $15 million, I said, putting my pinky finger to my lips. Now we're retired too, raising 2 children. Our son, Nicholas, because Danny insisted on giving him his full name, which I readily agreed to, is still young and will be starting nursery school next year. Isabel, our daughter, is the sweetest girl I've ever seen. We are happy now. This case, my last one, was complicated for me, but in the end, everything turned out well. In the end. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for more videos.